Hello and welcome. During my travels on this channel, I've visited lots of coastal resorts, and for the most part they're very similar. And sure, this place has got a promenade, a pier, a harbour, but it's also got some other things which I don't think you'll see anywhere else. Stick around. By the end of this video, you're going to have seen things you've never seen before. I'm going to show you around this lovely town, but if you just want to see the wacky things, you can skip ahead using the timeline.
You can change your mind, it's like the ocean, moving all the time, however slowly.
We're going to start off with this very peculiar building. When I saw it, I couldn't work out what it was. Sure, there was a plaque, but that didn't really tell me anything. I mean, what on earth is a sailor's reading room? And why would they need one? Okay, so I understand why there might be an anchor, a ship's rudder, and a full mast with rigging. That's obviously there so that the sailors would feel at home. In the end, my curiosity got the better of me, so I had to Google it. And it turns out that they had some problems with drunken sailors when they was home on shore leave.
What will we do with a drunken sailor? What will we do with a drunken sailor? What will we do with a drunken sailor early in the morning?
Shave his belly with a rusty razor. Shave his belly with a rusty razor. Shave his belly with a rusty razor early in the morning.
Put him in a longboat till he's sober. Put him in a longboat till he's sober. Put him in a longboat till he's sober early in the morning.
So despite trying all of the obvious tactics like shaving his belly with a rusty razor and putting him in a longboat till the morning, they still had problems with sailors fighting, antisocial behaviour, gambling, womanising. In the end though, they realised that the root of the problem was that these sailors really didn't have anything to do other than going in all of the many pubs in the town. So they decided what they would do was give them a reading room. I'm sure that solved the problem. For such a small town, there's a surprising amount of pubs here. If you're the sort of person who appreciates a good pint and you like local beer, then this is probably a town you should visit. In fact, every single pub I saw here sold local ale, and you'll find out about that a bit later on. There's some charming and very lovely buildings. It's a mixture of pretty coloured cottages and quite large, interesting looking Georgian properties. And there are also lots of green open spaces. I would say a disproportionate amount of them. At first I thought that the council planning department had been very generous with the space, but as I walked around the town I discovered the truth behind it. It would be fair to say that for a sleepy coastal British town, this place has had its fair share of drama. I first discovered Southwold about a year and a half ago when I was on a day trip with my girlfriend, and we came across this little fish and chip shop, which I think is the best fish and chips I've ever had. Don't get me wrong, it's blooming expensive, but it was packed. There must have been 30 people in the fish and chip shop, and it wasn't a bright summer's day either. This little triangular piece of land seems to function as the town square. The Grand Swan Hotel with its adjoining Stillhouse restaurant sits opposite a very attractive and charming and historical old butcher's. This shop has been functioning as a butcher's for 300 years. It's clearly a family concern. The town has an old world feel about it. I can't remember the last time I saw a proper grocery shop like this. There are a multitude of independent cafes, tea rooms and bakeries in Southwold, which make it a great place for just chilling out and ambling around. Are you starting to see a pattern with the pubs in this town? They all have something in common. We're just approaching the first of the village's greens now. I think you'll agree with me regarding the architecture. I've always liked Georgian architecture, but sometimes I can find it's a little bit boxy and plain. But I didn't feel like that in this town. It seems like they had some creative inspiration, and it also seems like they were quite wealthy, because none of these buildings were built in a cheap way. We've moved just up the road a few hundred metres and we're at another of the town's greens. This one sits overlooking Southwold Bay. Southwold Bay was the site of a very historic event. I was surprised. It didn't feel like, when you walk around here, it didn't feel like that this should be the site of such a big event. As I look over the front out to sea, I find it very difficult to imagine it, but this was the site of a battle involving 300 ships and approximately 50,000 men. Many of them lost their lives, and they were being washed up from the sea for quite some time afterwards. As well as the Battle of Southwold Bay, this tiny town was also bombed by the Germans during World War II. The destruction the town suffered as a result was minimal in comparison to what it suffered in 1659. While nobody can really say for sure what started the fire that tore through this town, they learnt some valuable lessons. This happened a good few years before the Great Fire of London, and it was a very similar situation, just on a smaller scale. Back in those days, they hadn't really given any consideration to what would happen if a big blaze started, and the houses were so close together that once it started, it was very difficult to stop. In London, it's believed that the two reasons why the blaze stopped is because the east wind dropped, but also because they used gunpowder to create fire breaks. Several years before that though, in Southwold, they figured this out. Instead of rebuilding straight away, they left them so that if it ever happened again, there'd be natural breaks that would stop the fire spreading to all the other buildings. As well as some delicious looking cakes and sweets. This baker's also sells canine crunches and canine peanut butter. I can't say as that's a combination that I think would probably go well together. Okay, so you've seen a number of pubs in this town. I don't know if any of you have managed to work it out, but they've all been supplied by the same brewery. and it's smack in the middle of this little town. It's one of the biggest employers in the area, and it's the reason why all the pubs in Southwold supply local beer. If you're interested in this type of thing, you can do a tour of the brewery, and out the back there's a lovely little cafe as well. Adnams own the Big Swan Hotel we saw when we first got into the town, and as well as that, they own the Lighthouse, which we'll see in a little bit. The Lighthouse is very unusual. It's not placed where you'd expect it to be. Surely the most local beer you'll ever find. I think it's less than 100 metres away from the brewery. I was very surprised to see they put the Lighthouse in the middle of the houses. Normally they're out right out on a point or something away from the houses and right on the edge of the ocean, but for some reason they've decided to build this one here. I wonder what that's like at night when you're lying in bed. You got your curtains closed and this white light keeps flashing every 10 seconds. At the beginning of the video I promised you I'd show you some things you'd never seen before. Well, we're at that location. It's a pier. I've been on hundreds of piers. You know, I like them, but generally speaking they're much of a muchness. Not in this case. This one has got things that are going to blow your mind. I did promise you that you'd see things that you've never seen before, didn't I? The water clock on Southwold Pier was constructed by two men in 1998, Tim Hunkin and Will Jackson. It took them 3 weeks to build, and they designed it as a feature about water recycling. Water's pumped up to the top of the clock from well below and goes to power the half-hourly P show. It was very quiet in Southwold. The weather wasn't good, so there wasn't that many people about, but on busy days, big crowds of people crowd around waiting for it to chime on the half hour and on the hour. I love finding wacky things like that as I wander around these places, and I was delighted to find that about 50 yards down the pier there was something else, again created by Tim Hunkin, one of the guys who made the clock.
Yeah, boys, look. We're just waiting for Amelia. Let's hurry on. Come on. Come in, mate. Oh, we can't do that. Come here, what's this? All right, you do it, or mum or nan. Right, where's Husband? Yeah, right, look. Amelia, come and watch. Oh, Amelia, look, Rudolph's going to do it. Come and watch the doggy. Amelia.
You put it in.
Yes.
Come out of it. Oh, there you go.
Push and hold. It's right back. Look, watch. Come. Amelia, look. Amelia, look.
Oh, it's all slobbery. Here comes what? Oh, at least it'll come down the
Congratulations, apparently you're halfway between being reckless and being a coward.
Am I? Oh, well, I'll settle for being a coward, alright?
Oh, did you hear me? I've done that before. Who wants to walk on and rent a dog? Do you want to rent a dog?
Right, you have to do that
Oh, I don't think I've got any coins.
You have to know that. Just sort of look at it. You're going to walk the dog, look. Come on then, the man will film you.
Right.
Ready,
Have you got a towel? Right, do you want me to put it in? You go?
You've got to walk in.
Right, off you go. You've got to walk it. You just walk it. You just press start. It doesn't let me do ya. I don't know what it does. I can't remember. Maddie will do it.
Yeah, Mum.
Hello. You've got to step. That's it. Oh, it's eating the.
Oh, it's eating the chips.
Have you got to pull the lead?
Isn't it brilliant?
They're good, isn't
You
they?
never see anything like that, do you?
It's amazing. Step forward. Keep up with it. What's this then?
Sophisticated investment. What's that? No,
You watch, come over here. Do the lift up, you can see.
it might be old fashioned.
Lift.
Back it. Good. Do you want me to try and hold it? Yeah. Was that good, boys? You were all watching that, weren't you?
Do you want mummy to go on it?
Amelia.
Do you want to go on it? I think you need. I don't think it makes you jump, that one. You just need the slides. So I can eat that. Well, try it. Come on.
Enjoy freedom to fly absolutely anywhere. Try exploring a luxury home. Take in some culture.
You have to try and eat before they spot you.
Come back here!
He's got poo on his. You see it?
That has to be the zaniest collection of amusements I've ever seen. I didn't show you all of them, there's loads more there to choose from. I'm not sure who enjoyed it more, the kids or the adults. I've brought you down to Southwold Harbour. It's a wonderful harbour. It's very different from your normal concrete, paved, man-made harbour. Last time I was here, I went with my girlfriend out on this boat. It was great. They take you out, it's a very fast rib, and they take you out at speed, but they do also sort of 3-hour nature watching tours. It's a great thing to do if you're down this way. There's a bustling community here. There's businesses, restaurants, but it's so spit and sawdust. It really is very unique. I like it. It's rustic. This thriving little community is more of a shanty town than an industrial estate, which makes a really nice change.
Saying quicken on the seat.
There's obviously lots of boats here, being a harbour, some in the water and many of them out of the water. Lots of them are in a poor state of repair and some of them look like they'll never see water again. And I wonder whether or not it should be cleaned up, but to be honest I think it would lose something. When I look around a place like this and see these old boat holes, I don't see a pile of junk that should go to the scrapyard. I see people's dreams. Some dreams don't come to fruition, that's a fact about dreams, but others, they do. And people are there putting a lot of effort in to restore these old boats so that they can go and live the dream. I was surprised to see this very upmarket bistro here, mainly because it's the sort of place you might want to dress up and come to, and I can sort of imagine walking down here after it's been raining in your nice shoes, trying not to get mucky. This little place on the right we're about to come to is an interesting place. We'll have a little look round in there.